Guitar Will Travel, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine, with your host, me, James Patrick Regan, otherwise known as Jimmy from the Deadlies. And today I'm speaking with guitarist Scott Sharrard and Fred Tackett from Little Feat. The conversation begins with Fred from Southern California, and Scott joins in a few minutes from Harlem, New York City. Fred tells us about Little Feat's new album, Strike Up the Band, and why a new album now. Fred discusses his association with Little Feat early on while he was working for songwriter Jimmy Webb. Scott then describes his association with Little Feat early on while he was playing with Gregg Allman. They both discuss the gear they used on the new album and the gear they'll be using on the road for the tour that just started. Fred talks about playing with Eric Clapton recently and the friendship Eric has with the band. And Fred tells us about tour life for Little Feat, and Scott tells us about the responsibility of playing in bands with such legendary guitarists before him. Scott tells us about going to school at the Milwaukee High School for the Arts and how that shaped his musical language. Fred describes how he got from Arkansas to Hawaii and then LA, and they both tell us about their side projects. To find out more about Little Feat and to see their tour dates, you can check out their website, littlefeat.net. That's LITTLEFEAT.net. Please subscribe, like, comment, share, and most of all, review this podcast. I'd really appreciate it. And please support Vintage Guitar Magazine and all the wonderful things they do for us guitar players, because they do so many wonderful things for us guitar players. Here's my friends Scott and Fred. Where are you at, Fred?
Topanga, California, Los Angeles, out here in between Malibu and the San Fernando Valley in the mountains.
Okay, all right. How close were you to the fires?
Oh, very close. So we had these wonderful helicopter firefighters and unbelievable guys dropping water from planes and unbelievable to watch.
Yeah.
They're surgical, man, the way they did it. They absolutely surrounded the town with firefighters and let it all burn. So now all the brush is burned away, man. And it's like, we got like a couple of years, I think, before we have to freak out again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was amazing jobs that they did. But it's still, all the roads Malibu's completely closed down. The Pacific Coast Highway's closed down. So you to get to Santa Monica, you have to go way around the valley and back in the rear end.
Yeah, sure.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But your house looks very festive. Either that or you're in Mexico.
Oh yeah, no, we're very festive, man. It's like always lights always.
Yeah, that's great. And is a very mission style.
Yep, you bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard a rumor that Ringo Starr keeps his house all decorated for Christmas year round.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. I read that somewhere.
We got a fire and
we have a fire. Yeah.
Oh, right on. Is it cold up in the mountains right now?
Yeah, it's always cold in the morning. Like people say in California, you don't get any change of seasons, and I said we get all four of them every day, from winter in the morning to spring by the noon, and then by 1 or 2 o'clock, it's summertime, and in the afternoon, it goes back to fall and winter time again. Every day.
Do you ever get any snow up there?
No, not, once every 10 or 12 years or so, we'll get like a little dusting, but not very often.
Yeah.
That's what's nice about California. You can drive to the snow, have a good time, and leave it there.
And you can drive to the beach and the snow in the same day.
That's right. You can.
This is like a stock question, and I apologize for it in advance, but why a new album now?
Well, the album before this was Sam's Place, a blues album that actually got a Grammy nomination.
Sure.
And we're very proud of it. And we wanted to do, there's 5 songwriters in the band.
Yeah.
So we wanted to, get some of the songs that we had written put down and for posterity here.
Sure.
Yeah. But we just figured that we needed to keep current here and put out some new material and, show what where we're all at these days. And we wanted to have a chance to really feature, Scott and Tony doing, original songs.
Sure.
Scott wrote several and Tony wrote one. And, with the blues album featured them. But this is, getting to do a Little Feat, showing how those guys are kicking us in the ass every day. They really put both Scott and Tony both put a fire under us, man, and just inspired the whole band to really up our game, and everybody's firing on all cylinders now. Everyone.
Yeah, it shows on the album for sure.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So when did your association with the band start? I mean, that you were friends, right, in the early days.
Yeah, I was very close friends with Lowell. I met Lowell many years before Little Feat was in his brain. My wife, now Patricia, was my girlfriend back then, and she lived next door to Lowell. And I was working for Jimmy Webb, the songwriter.
Yeah.
And he lived in this big mansion in Hollywood. And I came in downstairs one day, and Lowell was sitting in the middle of the living room, all dressed in white, playing this guitar. And I said, "Hey, man, if we could play some psychedelic music with that thing, man, let's get down." And he was like, "Oh, no, I only play sacred Indian music." Cool. And then 2 weeks later, he was in the Standells doing Dirty Water. So we went, Jimmy Webb and I went, "Here's some humor we can work with." So he became a very good friend of ours and hung out a lot. And then, he even ran for a union rep at one point. We were all like campaigning to make him in the union rep for the guy that goes around to your gigs.
Sure. Yeah.
He didn't win, but and then he decided to put a band together, and he said Little Feat, F-E-A-T, like the Beatles.
Yeah.
And okay, sounds good to me. So yeah, they were all, and Billy was the first guy to come down. Roy Estrada was with Lowell and the Mothers, and Richie was in Fraternity of Man and with Lowell and all those guys. So yeah, they were all good buddies. I met Richie at a Love-In when we were being tossed out by the police, and we were all being herded out of the park. And Lowell introduced me to Richie, and so that's he lived right down the street from me.
Sure.
So yeah, I knew them all before they even started the band, except for Billy. Billy came down to specifically join the band, but yeah, good friends.
What were you doing for Jimmy Webb?
I was playing guitar with him. I was living in, playing in a club in Hawaii. And the very first money he got from Up, Up, and Away in My Beautiful Balloon, he came over to Hawaii and saw me play and said, "You got to come to Hollywood. It's, Summer of Love, man." And
yeah. He
had this house, and he had a band called the Waterproof Candle, a psychedelic band. And he got me to come over and join that band. And we were just living the life, man, living the life in Hollywood, man. He was the perfect guy to be hanging with.
Sure.
The Prince of Hollywood, boy, at that point. People like Burt Bacharach were hanging around, It's just a great time.
Scott's here now, so we have.
Hey, excellent.
I'm actually at a recording session right now in Harlem. I just jumped out. We're over here at our studio working on a record. So
wow, I'm
on break on the stoop. So you're getting a real. You're getting a live from the Two Coasts interview here. You're getting gritty New York City brownstone, and you're getting Laurel Canyon laid back all at once.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Scott. I appreciate you joining us. Scott, let me ask you the same question I asked Fred. When did your association with the band start?
When I was 10 years old. It's Little Feat music is part of my DNA, and I got lucky enough to meet these guys in 2019 when I was subbing for Paul Barrere.
Okay.
And that day ended up being the day that Paul passed away. It was a very tragic and bizarre coincidence to be a musician who was asked to do that job on that day. And we got to the end of the gig, and it felt like a band.
Yeah.
I think to all of us. So then, you follow, I was lucky enough that those guys felt the same way I did about the sort of energy around it. And we've all been in kind of the classic band trust fall that's been going on since Count Basie and the Beatles.
Let me ask you this. So who does the horn arrangements on the tunes?
The horn players pretty much make it up, and then if there's anything that's we want to add or subtract, we do it then. But they come in with a general idea, and most of the time it's pretty much, the way it stays. But, we'll change a phrase here or take something out or put something in,
Yeah, yeah. And I heard, Fred, that you were playing some mandolin on the record?
Yeah, I play on several songs, on the Bluegrass Pines and, different things like that.
Yeah. And what kind of mandolin are you playing?
I play a Gibson, an old 1935 Gibson that my wife bought for me from McCabe's Guitarist. I actually walked in and I was doing a session with Glenn Campbell and he needed a mandolin and I didn't have one. I had an old Harmony that was a piece of junk and I called her up. I said, I need a mandolin now. And she went in and pointed up to one and listened, strummed about 4 or 5 of them and said, oh, I like the sound of that one, and brought it over to me. And I've had it ever. It's a wonderful instrument. And on the road, I have that at home playing sessions on the records and things.
Sure.
But I have an Eastman mandolin that my wife also bought me.
Right on.
That I use on the road.
Very cool.
It stays out there on the road all the time.
The folks at Eastman are very happy with you right now.
I hope so.
And what kind of gear were you using on the record, Scott?
I had my 2-Rock Classic Reverb. I really love their amplifiers.
Sure.
It's definitely a Dumble style circuit, but with kind of like a vintage Fender background to it. And then I had my trusty 1966 Fender Vibrolux reverb that I've been using for probably 25 years. I had them running in parallel for amps.
Yeah, that's great. And what about guitars?
Guitars, I had my old Fender Stratocaster that I got. It was a Strat Plus new in 1989. I bought it because there was one summer where I saw Little Feat, Eric Clapton, and the Allman Brothers, and they were all using Strat Pluses. So I figured it would be poetic to bring that guitar on the road, and I had that guitar turned into a Lil George Stratocaster with like a really loud Lauer pickup in the bridge and a Stratoblaster. So that guitar was in there for the slide stuff on a lot of the tracks. And then Fano, Dennis Fano, I've been working with since he started. Fano SP6, and then his new designs are for a company called Novo out of Nashville.
Sure.
And they made me this bizarre thing called the Cirrus T, and the one I have is you can't buy it. I completely Frankensteined it, put a bunch of pickups in it. It kind of turned into sort of a Ry Cooder style slide guitar. That one's an open G, so I use that on a couple things. And then my old Gibson CS336 that I've been playing primarily since I got it new in like 2001, and it's like a 335 if you shrunk it in the dryer.
So you mentioned you went to a show with the Allman Brothers and Little Feat and Eric Clapton. You played in 2 of those bands. Did you ever play with Eric Clapton?
Haven't hooked up with Clapton yet. I hope that happens because I know that he has the feetitis as well. I know he's a major fan. I've heard some great stories from these guys. I think, Fred, you just played a show with him recently, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a benefit for Bobby Newworth, after he died, and Eric came and played with us. David Mansfield put it together. Greg Lees played steel guitar. I strummed along on acoustic for most of it. And we did all of Bobby's songs,
Right on.
T-Bone Burnett. It was a fun night.
Yeah.
So Eric's in the mix a little bit. We'll try to tag up with him. I hope we tag up with him soon. I hope he hears this new album because I think he'll like a couple of the tunes on it.
Yeah.
It's certainly. And Fred, what kind of guitars were you using? What kind of amps and guitars were you using?
Well, I used the Fender Deluxe, about a 1963 something Fender Deluxe, and I have a Fender Stratocaster. Got them from I think 1980, basically.
Yeah.
No, it was probably when we put the band back together in 1988.
Okay.
And a guitar tech called up and said, down at the Fender factory, I can get one of them for $100 and one for $150. And I said, let me have them, man. I've been playing since. Wonderful guitars. I love them. I love it. My son is always kidding me. Say, how come you don't rock that Les Paul? And I go, well, because look at the curves on this Stratocaster, man. I mean, it's like a beautiful woman, man. Gotta have it. Gotta be playing the Strat.
I also played your Les Paul on that song when we were out in L.A., and I'll tell you something, you better have a chiropractor on staff if you're going to play that for 2 hours.
Oh, I know, man. We used that when I played with Bob Dylan, and he would play whatever guitar I played, he'd play. And finally one day he turned around and said, "Man, we got to get rid of these Les Pauls. This is breaking my back." I'm back to playing Stratocasters.
What year Les Paul is it?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I got it from David Hungate. He played it with Sonny and Cher back in the days.
Wow.
When we were doing the Cher show together, and I gave him like $150 for it, you know. And I have no idea how old it is.
Yeah. And so when you're going to go be on tour here pretty soon, like in literally like a couple weeks.
Few days.
Oh.
I'm leaving tomorrow to go to New Orleans to play at the Jazz Fest with Kenny and I. We do a thing with Anders Osborne called Dead Feet, where we play Dead songs and Little Feet songs.
Oh, right on.
And then the next day I'm meeting the guys in New York City, and we're rehearsing and getting ready to start touring a couple days after that. So,
right on.
Yeah, it's starting. It's on. The game is on.
And how does your gear vary when you you're not bringing those expensive amps, are you, on tour?
Well, my deluxe amp is always out there. It's very expensive. Everybody in the world is lusting after that amplifier.
No,
everyone wants it. It actually belongs to my son Miles, and he lets me use it.
Yeah, actually, those rigs on the album, those rigs and guitars. That's our touring stuff.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. That's great. That's great. And you guys are in a bus?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we got buses and bunks and TVs and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, man. Everything you need.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, that's old school.
Yeah, man.
No flying in for the weekend.
No. Yeah, I just saw Jackson Browne the other day at a kind of a sad a memorial for Lowell's son, Forrest, who died, and he was telling me he's had enough of the getting off the bus at 6 a.m, you know, and getting into a hotel, and said, "Do you guys still ride a bus?" I said, "Oh yeah, every day."
Wow. Does it ever get old?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's old after about 2.5 weeks.
Well, Scott, when you I mean, those leads are very inspired by Lowell, but I mean, they're also your own. How do you divide that? How do you is that something you think about ahead of time?
Well, when you're in a band like Little Feat, I mean, my best training for being in this band, in this position, was being in Gregg Allman's band for almost a decade, because in Gregg Allman's band, I had to think about Dwayne Allman, Warren Haynes, Dickie Betts, and Derek Trucks every night when I went on stage. And I had to think about, and then also don't forget Dan Toller from his solo band, and Jack Pearson, who's like my favorite guitar player. So they were all in iterations of his music. And then Gregg's favorite guitar players were Wayne Bennett from Bobby Bland's group and David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. So I had to balance all that when I went on stage, and I had to think about, like, this band, 50 years of rock music that were memories of my own and of the audience. So you're going to have to, it's kind of like being Yo-Yo Ma and playing Bach cello suites. There's only so far you can get away from the original article. So you get yourself a 400-year-old cello, and, you know, you find your own cadence with it, but you don't get too far away from the intent of the composer. And that's certainly how you play classic Little Feat songs, especially when you're playing slide guitar.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the new music, you know, I've tried my best to interpolate the sounds and approaches that I've refined, relearning that old music with the guys and applying it to newer songs that are writing that, for better or worse, are my own style.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And you didn't happen to go to music school, did you?
Yeah. Well, I went to High School of the Arts in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which it doesn't sound glamorous, but it sure was when I went, because it was underwritten by this guy Michael Cudahy, who started the famous Summerfest festival there, and he was a major jazz fan. And we had Mel Ryan, Wes Montgomery's organist, was one of my adjunct professors.
Wow.
Gerald Cannon, bassist for Elvin Jones and McCoy Tyner. You know, I was studying, you know, Wayne Shorter and Miles Davis and Duke Ellington when I was a sophomore in high school, arranging, you know, playing in different size ensembles. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I was actually an adjunct teacher myself for the freshmen. So I've been I've been forced to learn to play every instrument and hear music in totality since I was a kid. I was also raised by a musician, and my house was always the band house. We moved a lot in my early years, and then we lived in Milwaukee for all my high school years. And we always had people like, Buddy Miles used to come over and sleep in the basement and hang out, and jam. And Hubert Sumlin was around all the time. He taught me how to finger pick when I was a kid. He used to walk around with a pin on his jacket. He was always dressed really well, and it had a pin with a picture of a pick crossed out, like a don't play a pick. That was his big thing. He taught me.
Yeah.
so I was kind of, high school was like college for me. So when I got to New York City, which was the summer of '96, I moved into a rent-controlled apartment that was across the street from Allen Ginsberg. He was on his deathbed at the time.
Wow.
But when I did that, I was 20 years old. I said, I must be doing something right by moving here. I mean, I moved in across the street from Allen Ginsberg, and I've been here ever since.
Wow. Well, that's great. So, Fred, you mentioned, you were gigging in Hawaii. How did you get from Arkansas to Hawaii?
Well, it's a long story. I went to music school as well in Texas and Oklahoma, and I was at the point, I was in Oklahoma City, and I was playing in a nightclub 6 nights a week back when there used to be gigs where you had a club that you played in 6 nights a week, and we had like kind of grade B acts that would come through, like Two Jackson and Jill and comedians, and we would play 5 sets of dance music and then 2 floor shows of the guys, and it was like a great, besides my college education where I majored in trumpet, it was like an education playing those sets. And we so one of the acts that came through was 4 Filipinos called the Highbrows. And it was the old Timothy Leary, like tuned in dropout. And I said, I'm out of here. And I got into a station wagon with them. And one guy spoke English, a guy named Moses Teroy, who got me my start, man. We went off and played a couple of gigs in Jacksonville, a couple of weeks in Jacksonville, Florida, and then went to Hawaii. And then I was in Hawaii, and this guy comes running in. I was playing Ode to Billy Joe because it was just out, and everybody was like, it was a big hit.
Yeah.
And I was playing an instrumental version of it, and this guy comes running in and says, what was that song you were playing? And I said, Ode to Billy Joe. So he was running out of the club and comes in about 5 minutes later and says, I want to talk to you about something, when you get finished with your gig. And we had been talking about this songwriter named Jimmy Webb. He had Up and Away and My Beautiful Balloon. And by the time I get to Phoenix, 2 totally different songs.
Yeah.
And we were talking, who is this guy, man? This guy's an amazing writer. So I go to this hotel room and knock on the door. I thought he was a drug dealer. I told the guys, hey, man, I'm going to score. We're going to be happening. And opened the door, and he goes, my name's Jimmy Webb. And I went, holy crap. And then he said, you got to come to Hollywood. And I've got this band together called the Waterproof Candle, and we're going to, we had a song called Electrically Heated Child about a tested tape. So those were the days. And that's how I did it, man. I was from that 6-night-a-week gig, which unfortunately those gigs don't exist anymore, but it was like my college education on top of my college education.
Yeah, yep. Scott, you were playing in a band called the Chesterfields. Do you have side projects going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, I have a group I do here in New York with my friends called, it's a tongue-in-cheek name because Little Feat had an instrumental that they used to play in the early 70s called El Dorado Slim about some character who used to hang around the clubs. And it's a great instrumental tune. We haven't played it actually inside Little Feat, but I do something with that group. And Tony Leone is usually on drums from Little Feat for that. It's like a 6-piece band. We play all like 70s instrumentals, like
oh wow,
all the stuff I grew up on, like Quincy Jones, Eddie Harris, Grant Green, Lou Donaldson, Stanley Turrentine, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. I mean, people come to the show, you can dance for 2 hours straight. That's kind of the vibe.
Yeah.
And then I produce a lot of records. I mean, I'm at my studio right now in Harlem with my producing partner, Charlie Martinez, who's been working with Little Feat too. He did the Sam's Place record, the blues record we did. Yeah. And he does front of house for us too. So Charlie and I have been making records together for almost 3 decades. since I was a young child, and met him here in New York, and he was a house engineer at Dangerous. So we get mixed up in a lot of different stuff, but the majority of my touring life is definitely with Little Feat at this point.
Sure. And what's Harlem like right now? Like, I mean, we've all been told about Harlem, even if we live on the West Coast. What is it? How scary is it?
Not scary at all, man. I mean, you just, the thing is New York City. How many times have people counted this city out? And my kids, I got 2 little kids who are growing up here, and they've got friends from all over the world, and they speak 2 languages fluently.
Wow.
We're living if you live in the 5 boroughs in New York, you live in a European first world country, and I'll take that over everything else that's going on right now.
Sure. Fred, you mentioned your side project, playing the Dead tunes. How often do you guys do that?
Once a year.
Oh,
Once a year at Jazz Fest. I have to go to my YouTube playlist and listen to the Grateful Dead songs that are on play, and Andrew usually picks out the easiest ones.
Okay.
We just have a lot of fun jamming for a couple hours. We don't even have a rehearsal or hardly a sound check. We just show up and go jam. But yeah, mostly I just sit out here in Topanga Canyon with my grandchildren and my guitars and my mandolins and, my trumpet, and I practice.
Right on.
I don't really play that much outside anymore except Little Feat.
Yeah. Are you going to start a band with your grandkids?
I'm probably going to play some gigs with my son, Miles. He's an insanely great guitar player.
Oh, right on.
We're talking about, we play around, going to play around L.A. some,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fantastic.
But yeah, my 2 grandkids are just obsessed with Los Lobos' La Bamba. We play that at least 20 times a day. My granddaughter's first words is Bamba, and we just play it over and over. I
could be worse.
Dago and Cesar, I said, you have an outsized influence on my children's musical education here.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's much better than surfing Bird.
I tell you, man, they love it. They love it.
Well, it's been great talking to both of you. I don't want to take too much of your time. You guys are playing here in Napa coming up in the end of June, and I hope I get a chance to meet you guys in person. Middle of June.
Absolutely. That's a good place to hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thank
All
you.
Right, thanks for having us, buddy.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Have Guitar Will Travel. You can catch up on all the things I'm doing at thedeadlies.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms as well. And please support Vintage Guitar and all the wonderful things they do, because they do many, many wonderful things for us guitar players. Thanks. Please subscribe. Please tell a friend, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.